bologna. If a nigga roll a Dutch in the room, we clutching the goo. We smoke the best here in the city of the president.
What it do, everybody? This is the Man Cave with the fellas, and I'm Big Dave. Welcome for coming in here this evening. First thing we want to touch on is that 1.6 billion people celebrated Ramadan. I'd like to say happy Ramadan to you all who finished your, and now you're breaking your fast. We're supposed to have our resident Ramadanian or whatever he is on Suge, but he's not here today, so we miss you, Suge. We wish you could tell us a little bit about the situation, but I'm not going to touch on that. Anyway, want to get into Anthony Joshua getting defeated by Andy Ruiz this weekend. Seemed like Joshua got hit with a right hook and never really recovered from it, and there goes his championships, man. It was kind of crazy with that. Also Golden State tying up the series 1-1. We're gonna get into a little bit of that, but first let me introduce. I have Aqueelah sitting to my right. I'm sorry, Miss Collier. I'm sorry. Miss Collier sitting to our right, the Man Cave therapist. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, thank you for coming back.
Well, thank you for having me.
I almost felt like we didn't finish last time. Like when I left, I wanted a little more, so I had to schedule you guys to come back. And I appreciate you for making the trip. Sitting next to her, Big Stan. What's going on, Big Stan, the man?
What's going on, Dave?
Good to have you back. I see you got the red Be Effective on today.
Yes, sir. Be
Yes,
Effective.
sir. And you want to go ahead and drop that link, man.
Pick up your Be Effective shirt at coolinkdfw.com or just follow us on Facebook, and the shirts are available there. Cool Ink.
Yes, sir. Support those that support you. Y'all know what we do in the Man Cave.
Yes, sir.
And next to Stan, we got a very special guest, Miss Brittany. How you doing, Miss Brittany?
How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate you sitting in on short notice. We're going to be talking about our men's health today. We got into a lot of what the kids were doing last time when we spoke. But first thing I want to open the floor and ask you guys been paying attention to the show at all?
Absolutely, yeah.
You been paying attention to it? How about you, Stan?
A little bit.
Paying attention to it?
Something.
So, we had a great discussion in here last week. First, we started with your discussion 2 weeks ago. And this is for all of you guys who missed those shows. Make sure you go back and watch them. We had a great discussion with you guys on mental health. And then we came back and we had a discussion as the fellas actually just on about men and kind of, protecting our women in today's society. A lot of them don't feel, spoken up for. And I'd like to ask you guys what you thought about our conversation.
Well, I think you guys did a good job covering everything collectively. I like that you guys pointed out different things about educating yourself. I think that one thing that could be added is making sure that you use the whole village to support, right? Because not one person alone can make a difference. So reaching out to different organizations, different community events, different people in your family. You also touched on family therapy, right? I think that's super important. You talked about teaching your daughters different things and protecting them. I think fathers are the first love of a daughter.
Yeah.
And so you set the tone on how things will be in relationships and how she will see the world, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a very valid point. I think Dwayne made that. It was pretty good. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, how about you, Stan? What did you get out of that last show, man? You thought you could come back collectively and talk about?
So, relationship-wise with children?
Well, what we talked about last week.
It's just being effective, being a part of your child's life, and actually going further than the surface, with your children. So I think that being able to have an intellectual conversation with the child and being able to reach and find out where they're hurting is really important. I think that a lot of times we don't.
But did you watch the show last week about protecting women?
Protecting women?
Yeah, we had a show last week. You watched the show last
I didn't
week?
watch the whole show.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want to hear your insights on it. What did you think about that show?
What do you think overall?
About protecting
About
women?
protecting women. Because Stan clearly ain't
Clearly,
did his homework.
I'm lost. Man, it's always so much moving. I'm lost. Okay. So protecting women.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did y'all talk about?
I mean, well, last week we covered a whole lot of stuff. I could have sworn I told you make sure you watch the show so we can get back. But no, we covered a lot of bases, man. It's just that we go through the society today, and this is another thing that I want to bring up that I want to kind of transition to after I get Brittany's synopsis of how she liked the show last week. But so you can think about it for a second.
Okay.
Is women are quick to say, hey, we don't feel protected. We feel like you guys don't have our back in society. We feel like you don't stand up for us when our rights are being violated and things like that, like maybe Indian people would, or something like that. But maybe there's reasons for it too. You know what I'm saying? And I actually got a real interesting concept from somebody else, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'm hoping they're going to call. So we're going to leave that. I'm hoping they're going to call in and ask their question because it was off the wall. But I thought, we could touch on it, that maybe there are reasons why we aren't doing it, Well, what did you think about the show last week?
First of all, I thought it was a great topic, and I think that the idea that you guys were like so aware of what's happening and then just willing to kind of dive in and look at it from our perspective. And then it also just made me kind of have this idea of just a collective energy, right? So it's like you're talking about protecting the women, and I'm thinking like, well, how do we protect the men? And I think that if we unify to protect each other, then we'll have a lot more love and just energy and everything overall. So I thought it was a great topic. I appreciate you guys for having that discussion, and I thought it was great overall. So.
Well, I think one of the things for both sides is to be transparent, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we're shielding ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings. We're not willing to open up. And so you can't protect a person if they don't feel safe enough to share with you what they need protecting from or from whom, right? So being transparent and then being present, right? You can't protect me if you're not there.
Right.
If you're not invited to the table, how can you protect me? And I think you guys touched on that as far as the workplace. Sometimes there's not a big presence of black men there to do the protection. So how do you protect me when in your absence? So speaking about that as well. Yeah,
that was something I was going to touch on was have we been put away from the table? Would be the question that I think most men will want to ask, because they feel as though, like, if you take a poll between a lot of men, with our hue, you're going to get a lot of them that's going to say, well, look, nowadays these women almost prefer the system over us. You know what I'm saying? They give you hopes and promises of a free WIC card and government assistance, and we out the door. So, I'm just.
A cop out.
That's a systemic issue, right? Because
that's a cop out. Because those things were put in place.
I just want you to know
to
that came from a woman.
Okay, and so I still think it's a cop out, right? Because I think those things were put in place in place of the man being in the home.
Are you familiar with the Willie Lynch letters?
I am.
Okay, so would you say that it was a crazy thing to say that the government system, when it comes to relationships, is almost an identical system to the Willie Lynch letters?
It's very much similar, but I do believe the systematic approach is completely separate from the black man being present and protecting the black woman. I don't think those two kind of overlap.
Yeah, and I think last week he was talking about like more so in a corporate setting, which is where you were kind of going. It was like you don't have a lot of black men in corporate America, so to speak. I mean, we're a minority in a lot of places that we go, and then you don't see a lot of minority men, and especially like in leadership roles in corporate America. So I thought that was kind of the angle where he was going, and then you're kind of swindling us a different way.
Well, I mean, I'm saying in the same token, okay, you don't have a lot of us black men in the office environments, right? In those office settings, okay? But also, like, we have women that work in those office settings who will say things like they don't want a man who's not making $100,000. They don't want the guy who's working on the back of a trash truck. They don't want the guy that's at a construction site. So isn't that essentially pushing us away from the table? I'm just trying to tie the,
perspective, because you can look at it like that's pushing you away from the table, or it could motivate you to really come to the table.
All right, let me hear what you guys say, sir.
I like that.
It really depends on, like you said, on the perspective, because you can trace it back to if we haven't fully had a position at the table, like you said, we're not in corporate America. Think back in the earlier years where if a black man stood up for a woman, what would happen to him?
Right.
You literally take the biggest, baddest black man and you make an example out of him.
That's the Willie Lynch letters right there.
Right. So you castrate him. So now the man feels like he's less empowered or emboldened to step up for the white woman, because look what they're doing right now. They're killing black men every single day.
Absolutely.
And when they kill black men, do black women come and rescue us when they kill us?
Oh, yeah.
Can I respond? Can I chime in real quick?
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. See, well, I've been in corporate America at that table, at the head of the table in some cases, but I've been here for over 30 years. So being at the table is not the most comfortable place, and the majority of the time I was the minority. Okay. So going back to the situation where the system is providing all these things for the African American woman or black woman or Negro, whatever you want to call her, woman of color, right? All these things are being provided for her, yes, but we as men have to step up.
Absolutely.
We have to step up, because you hear the complaint. It's a systemic thing that almost every woman is saying she's not feeling safe with their black man. That is a bad thing, and she can turn to the other races and feel completely comfortable and relaxed. So that mainly is because we're not stepping up. And it's not all of us. We know that.
Right. Yeah.
But
Well,
the few of us, the
yeah.
minority of us, is having such an impact. And then with the media supporting that as well, I can say the media's they're trying to make money like everybody else.
Right.
But I think that if we step up, we can turn the tides.
Okay. I mean, listen, of course, but there's hundreds of millions of jobs out here, and everybody's not going to work in corporate America. Every man that is for you is a woman. The man that may be for you may not make as much money as you do. He may not be on your level at that point, but if you invest, he may come to that. You know what I'm saying? He may be over your level at this point. You have no problem going and joining forces with him when that's the case. But when it seems like for men, when we're the ones that may be a little down, it becomes an issue.
I don't agree.
With our women.
I think sometimes when you're a little bit down, you start to feel a little bit insecure, and you don't want to own that, right? I think the black woman has been supporting the black man for many, many, many years. If you look back in history, we were always supported. So I think that there's a lot of times that you guys are taking an easy way out, right? You want to be independent. You want these women's rights. Well, of course we do, but we also want you at the table with us.
How do we take the easy way out? Explain that. I'm gonna need
What
to hear
you
that.
just said a few minutes ago.
What?
With the whole, okay, so they got the systematic things for the women, wig and whatnot, and so where do we fit in with that?
Well,
and
the point of
we're
that
not
statement.
at the table.
Yeah, but the point of that statement was the fact that, if we are, what I'm saying is the systematic pushing of us out the door. It's not really to say that you guys are getting this or you're getting that. It's the fact that, okay, first we're talking about we don't feel protected.
Right.
Okay, so we had a show about that to where we figure out how we can start the conversation to where we can do more things to start to protect you ladies, so you don't say that anymore. I just want to see black women not have to say that. I feel like that's a terrible thing that you have to say that. Like that's even a narrative. Okay, so we talked about that. So now we're talking about, well, why is it that we aren't there? Because we, just like she said about protecting the king, the question is, why aren't we there?
Well, I mean, so one, we're not in a tug of war, right? It's not like male versus female,
Right, of course.
But I mean, going back to the Willie Lynch letters, like systematically, we're screwed up. We have a lot of healing, a lot of restoration to do in our communities, right? So it's not a perfect, ideal world. So yes, these things do exist. They might not exist directly, like they were back then, and the whole breaking down of the black family. But these are things that we have to continue to grow from, and that's why I said I thought that having that conversation last week, because there was a lot of other things underneath that conversation, right? It was like, we talk about protect, but it's not always a physical, it's an emotional thing.
Exactly.
It's a heart
Exactly.
thing. And a lot of times men don't get that until later on in life. And at that point, you've salvaged a lot of women who was there when you wasn't, nothing, or you wasn't there. But it's not a thing of like beating the man down, and it's like. And like I said, like watching y'all have that conversation last week, that dialogue was like, I felt protective over you guys. You know what I mean? Like, damn, this is so great to feel protected. And for my brothers to have this conversation about us, it makes you want to just be like, what can I do? And I think women, especially black women, especially in the culture, like I have a son, you know what I mean? I'm like, yo, he light skinned, hopefully he can pass. Not really, but in reality, it's such a tough world out here. It's like, it's sad to be raising a black boy in today's society. So I think a lot of women, we do stand up for our men, we do fight for our men, and I think it's not a fight against. It's like, how do we continue to do the healing and the love and the work together?
Right.
So.
I think it's a bringing each other together, right? Men and women, and we have to create a new normalcy, right? Because what has happened in the past is no longer working.
Right.
So it can't be, well, it's your fault because you want to be independent, or it's your fault because you were not stepping up.
Right.
We got to come together
Right.
as a culture, as a community, and kind of work together and lift each other up where we fall short.
Absolutely.
So I think it's more of coming together and creating a new normalcy, because what was in the past no longer works.
I absolutely agree that because we've now found new identities and new roles. Because like my dad could say, or your parents could say, as a man, all I have to do is bring the bread home.
Right.
Right.
But now you meet a woman, she got the bread. She's already paid. She already has a house. She already has kids. So where do we find our role and our identity as men when everything that we're supposed to provide is already in place when we come in the picture?
Well, now that you said that, I have to interrupt here, because this question is for Miss Aisha Crutchfield, because she asked this question the other day in the back seat. You got all the friends with names. Kiki. But anyway, she asked this question the other day, and she asked me to ask it on the show, and she asked me to talk about it. I was like, I'm not really sure it's a good, because I felt like I could sum it up in 5 minutes. So I wasn't sure if it was a good discussion, but I'll ask you. And then I'll ask you, of course. We got to get you. But she wanted to know, why do a lot of men have an issue dating an independent and strong woman?
Because as a man,
Thank you.
I have absolutely no problem with that.
Right.
I mean, I have dated a woman who was wealthy,
Right.
Plain and everything, but she was a little bit controlling, but that was an anomaly. But honestly, I have no problem. The more money she made, the happier.
right. Let me tell you why.
Go ahead.
So most men feel a sense of ownership when it comes to a woman, not to be controlling, but to be like, this is mine, this is my woman. And when a woman makes more money or is a boss woman, her demeanor is different. You'll find that most boss women are not submissive.
Right.
You'll find that most boss women make their own moves. So as a man, how do you say, oh, I'm going to surrender and submit when I'm supposed to be called the man? You know what I mean? So I think
Submit? Who's doing that?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Most of the time, the boss woman wants to take control.
Incorrect. I think I can strongly say that we do not want a man that submits.
No, they don't.
As a boss woman, I do not want a man that submits. What I want you to do is be able to accept me for the boss woman that I am, and still understand that protecting me or providing for me does not just mean financially.
Right.
I need you to show up in the other areas of my life where I need support,
And when they
emotionally,
do,
mentally.
right. And when they don't, how do you get past that without them feeling inferior because you now take control? Because if you don't see it happening as a boss woman, you're gonna make it happen, aren't you?
Very true.
So
you are gonna make it happen.
what has to happen is communication.
That is key.
right?
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to say what you need from me, and I need to be able to say what I need from you. And we need to give each other what we need, not what you think I need. I don't need you to pay my bills.
When they
I need
don't.
you to show up in other ways.
All right.
Don't.
Well,
How do you
what I think
How do you get past that without them feeling?
We getting playback in the earphones,
now
man.
take control.
We getting
Because
playback.
if you don't see it happening as a boss woman, you
Yeah,
don't let it
well,
happen.
what I think it is that at some point, there's nothing wrong with a woman that makes good money, that's independent, has her own. I believe most men want that.
Yeah.
I don't know too many men that don't want that, except for probably overly rich men, because they just want to stay on that level of king dangling, you know, point blank period. So most men that I know, most people that I'm around, they want an independent woman. You don't want to have a woman you got to take care of and do all of this and do all that. You want an independent woman. The problem comes in when that independent woman starts to devalue you as a man because she's an independent woman. See, if you find yourself repeating, I'm an independent woman, you're doing it. If you find yourself repeating, I don't need you, then you're doing it. Those are the things, that is when, it's the devaluing of a man that's the issue, not the fact that you're an independent woman that's an issue. So I just think that we have
I
to
think
look.
that comes up whether you are a boss chick or not, right?
Why?
So people-
Because men don't do it.
Oh.
Well,
It can be very indirect.
Men
Right,
don't
so-
do it.
So I think it comes on both sides, but I think the devaluing of a person, we all have to check ourselves and make sure we're not doing it directly or indirectly, right? And so that comes with communication, right? You need to be able to say, hey, that made me feel a certain type of way,
Right.
and own it, right? And so I think more communication versus expectation of you're supposed to, you know, hold me to a higher standard because you're the man or you're the head of the house. I think it comes down to mutual respect, okay, and being open with your communication, expressing your needs, your wants, and your thoughts.
Okay.
Can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
The thing about it being an independent woman, like I said, I dated one, but she wasn't emotionally independent. She was extremely emotionally dependent. And she depended on me for too many things to make her feel better about herself. And
Right.
that was the problem that I had.
Right. I hear that.
And that's what I was gonna say. I mean, it doesn't always have to be a money thing. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because like my love language is quality time, right? So I can make more money than my guy or whatever, but if I'm not having that need met, then that can create an issue. Then that can cause me to go into a place of like, well, I don't need you because you're not fulfilling my needs. I'm not saying that's a perfect world. That's actually kind of something that I have to manage through. And it's not even just like a boss babe thing, but I think too, you have a lot, like millennials, a lot of millennials aren't getting married until later on in life. So
Right.
sometimes you get into a mindset where you're so used to being by yourself and you technically, you've gotten to a place where you don't need anybody. So coming out of that and being able to shift and know how to coexist in a relationship in itself. And then on top of that, if you are a boss babe, you might have a lot of things to kind of work through.
Right. Well, exactly. Okay, so getting back on the male perspective, right? I want to come up with 2 books, and you can refer to the first one, the DeVar Franklin book.
Oh yeah.
What's the title of it?
What men?
Well, you read that book, so you'll be able to talk a little bit
What is
about
it
it.
called?
I want to reference an author. His name is Nakada. He wrote a book called Heart on Break. And basically what I want to talk about is a couple of points that he had in this book. And I want to talk about it because when we, you know, one of the reasons we have Miss Collier here is because she's, you know, expert in mental health. And a lot of our women, social media, things like that, around, I'm going to say, demographic 33 to 40 something. We hate men, y'all all dogs, y'all this, y'all that, y'all this, right? So I was reading this little excerpts of this book. It was so interesting that I had to bring it to you guys, right? Is a break necessary for a man in life? Do you believe that for a man to become his best self, to become his best human being that he can be, is a break from dating and from women, from relationships needed in a man's life? That's number one I'd like to ask.
Well, okay.
Kenny, like, goddamn.
You know, this is what I feel. I think it works both ways for male and female. I mean, because when we try to find ourselves, we need to step away. We need to break away from those things that are distracting us.
Hold
from
up,
finding
Kenny.
ourselves.
Well, hold up, Kenny. See, this is the problem.
Okay.
We need to step away, right?
Right.
But we don't want to step away from sex. So what we ended up doing is we end up being hurting people.
We do hurt people.
We're being hurt people,
Right.
hurting people.
Right.
And now we have this age range of our 30s to our 40-year-old women who are out here posting on a daily basis how I can't stand y'all niggas. Y'all, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
You need some
what
new
kept them
Facebook
in that
I
relationship?
need what?
Some new Facebook friends. Because I don't be having people in my you start talking like that, you gotta go.
Something happened in that relationship that's keeping her in that dysfunctional thing anyway.
Right.
So why is she so dependent to that relationship where she gets to that emotional level?
Well, that's not really the point I want to get at.
Okay.
My real actual point is that when men want to take a break from relationships, it's not fair that we want to have sex and still be on this break from this relationship. Is that
I mean, but
is
it's
it a way to do it
right,
properly?
Right. I think that it's about finding somebody. Like, I think, because y'all talked about it last week, it's like all about the emotional responsibility, right? So if you're with someone and she's like, I want to get married, I want to have kids, and you know you don't have any of those intentions, like, you need to let that lady go on about her life versus being there and leading her on and bringing her to your mom's cookout and all that. So anyway, so to your point, I think that there might be somebody out there that you can do what you need to do with, knowing that you're in a particular state of your life. But I also think that men might be less susceptible to do that, or they don't think that they need that, because y'all are just like so macho, like I'm good, y'all always good, like even when you're not good. So
I'm just saying.
Well, you know, sex ain't emotional for us.
It's really not. It's not.
That's it right
I
there.
can go both ways.
Go ahead,
That's
Sam.
it. So for us to take a step away, we have to fully step away, because whenever we go and we cross that boundary,
Have you ever went celibate?
Yeah,
I have too.
I went for a long time.
Not me, but it was interesting.
Yeah, it was. But to your point, when you are keeping your when you're
Right.
keeping that,
I got you.
you do feel like you're getting better, like you're focusing on yourself, and you have more power and energy to put towards being a better man.
That's actually true.
To get yourself together. It is. I did that for a long time, and I know, and it
How
helped
long?
me. Oh man, over 6 months.
God damn it, Stan. You alright with me. I was thinking you were gonna say like some 2 years and shit, and I was gonna feel bad.
No, that was a long time for me.
Right, it was for me too.
Yeah, so I did that. But
I hit the 3-month mark. I was proud of
that's
me.
what I'm talking about, man. Yeah. But no, we cannot drag a woman along, because women is so emotional for women. And once when you have sex with a woman, like, you can expect for her to.
Right, but see, this is my problem. So you come to a woman, you let her know, hey, look, I ain't really looking for nothing. I'm just trying to do me and blah, blah, blah. Y'all get to chilling, and then all of a sudden, it's like, you my boyfriend, nigga, stop playing with me.
Nah.
you gotta be socially, I mean, you gotta be responsible enough to be like, sis, I can't do this, like, you gotta go.
That's-
You can't be doing boyfriend stuff.
Oh, right.
Say that again.
Right.
Actions gotta
Right.
represent what you said. Okay, so this all you're not. So then
Right.
don't
You deserve a
follow.
round of applause.
Yes,
for that,
that's
right?
very true.
Can't be doing
Did
boyfriend
she
shit. You're right.
hit the nail on the head with that
You're
one.
licking cake off her and shit. It's tough.
I think you can definitely. I think men can definitely step away and take time to get themselves together. But I think that they have to have a focus, right? As either a spiritual focus, or I'm just taking time out for me, and maybe I'm going through therapy, or maybe I'm seeking for spiritual guidance or something to give you a substance, a basis, so that you can take that time out. And I think everyone needs to take a time out after a relationship, because you need to heal, you need to process that, you need to know what I want and what I don't want, and you're not going to be able to do that going from relationship to relationship. Now, the whole sex part, you got to be honest with the people. Like, you got to give them a choice and say, hey, I'm not looking for a relationship, a friendship, anything. I'm just looking for this. Are
Right.
you okay with that?
But you know that ain't gonna get you no ass. And
I
you
mean,
know
it
that.
might.
The only
You know,
problem is-
y'all already
It's
know that.
it's 2019. It's people out here.
Man, y'all need to stop lying.
That's-
Women need to
When
stop.
you connect with a woman intellectually,
Yeah,
sparks are gonna fly.
it's a problem.
Yeah, you know
Right.
sparks are gonna fly.
It's a
Don't
problem.
be having these deep
You know that ain't gonna
intellectual, let's talk about our future talks
Nah,
if that's not what you
no.
want. Because if you start speaking intellectually,
All right, hold on
that's
one
bringing
second.
us back.
Yeah.
You on with the man cave? Go ahead.
What up, yo? I'm on the six fat man, Detroit, Dallas. What's going on, everybody?
What's good, brother? What's your comment, man?
Man, I just want to give a little pushback on what I've been hearing so far, man. My apologies.
Go ahead.
I've been just free from the situation. But, first things first, if you, the ladies say that the cop out, when you go on the system and things like that, you gotta look at the history. Not only, you gotta look at history, you also gotta look at segregation and Jim Crow laws. The government made it to where black men couldn't get jobs, and then when they offered the new deal to us, they told us that men can't be in the house. They told white women, Hispanic women, and everyone else, their men can stay in the house. So they were able to get the government assistance without putting their man out. But our women was told we couldn't be around.
Okay.
That's the first thing I'm gonna put that on.
All right, go ahead. What's the next one, man? Go ahead. We got some time for you.
For sure. The second one, not all black men are being protected. Like I heard one of the I believe there was, I can't remember what exactly said it, but not all black men are being protected by our women.
I agree.
Black men that they want to just a bunch of ugly fat motherfuckers, and they ain't got no women to protect them. They ain't got no woman holding them down. So to know that all our sisters are holding all brothers down is a loud lie.
All right. Well, man, we appreciate your comment, man. Thanks for letting them talk about it. All right.
Go ahead, call back here on this Sunday.
All right. Thank you, man.
Did he say he was gonna call back?
Yes, he
Go
does.
ahead.
First off,
Go ahead.
we were not negating history.
Right. No.
A lot of things happen in history. I could go toe to toe with you about how black men suffered, how black women suffered, women's
That's not the
rights,
point,
and
though.
all of that, right? So the point is today, what are you
right.
willing to do today to make a difference? Because we cannot continue to use our past as a crutch. We have to make changes. We have to do what we need to do to redefine ourselves. I mean, black women, we get it all the time. Angry black women syndrome and all those things.
All right, so-
we have to make a conscious decision, a conscious choice on how we respond to things.
Okay. So what do women work?
Well, I was just gonna say
Go ahead.
to his second point, there's a whole segment of women that love fluffy men. So I do
Right, and we never said all. We never said all.
Right, and it's not a perfect world. Like some men aren't being protected, some women aren't. Some men are being overly protected. I mean, it's not a
You're
perfect
right.
world. But I'm sorry.
I understand. No,
I just wanted to touch both of his points.
I
'cause
want
she
to hear
touched
from
them
you,
all.
ladies. What women got to work on to protect their men? Let me ask you
Well,
that.
I think building the men up. Like I think just complimenting you. I mean, first of all, I think just complimenting men and just letting them know that they're loved and they're, especially in a black man in today's society. You know what I'm saying? There's so much aversion or adversity that you're fighting with. So I think maybe just a simple like I love you. I do it all the time. Like I'll see a guy out and I might be walking around I'm like, what's up, brother? Like, how you doing? Or I might end the conversation by calling him a king or something like that, just so that he knows that like I have,
Okay. So I want you, Ms. Kim.
I agree with her. You know, a lot of times, men that come into my office that are struggling with, well, my wife doesn't care about me and different things like that, it's usually because they're not getting their ego stroked, they're not getting the reassurance, and they feel like their position is optional. Right, so we can do a better job at reassuring the men that, hey, you are important. We appreciate you, and your place is here. You are king.
So-
you are head of this house.
So what you both saying is that y'all just need to tell him some stuff to make him feel good and stroke his ego, but y'all not saying nothing. I just got to put it out there.
What do you mean we're not saying nothing?
Y'all not saying nothing.
What do you mean?
You basically saying we need to tell y'all that y'all the kings.
That's
of the
not
house,
his first time.
and that we are here for y'all, and y'all are strong.
But do you
is strong.
But do you know?
And you should carry all the groceries by yourself.
How would that make you feel? How would that make you feel if you heard something like that on a daily, weekly basis?
But what I'm saying is we're
'Cause you
sitting
wanna
here.
hear that you're the
no,
man.
no.
This is what you wanna
We
hear. You
just
wanna
sat
hear that
here.
you're the man.
We
That's
just
why it's the man's day.
it ain't about that. We just sat here and we'll break men down to a science. We'll break men down to the cell. The amoebas rolling around.
Oh, yeah, let's go. Okay. Where you going? Where you going with
But
that?
when I ask y'all what women need to improve on,
Okay, but you know what? This is the point. This is where communication. Do tell us, right? Because you clearly didn't like our answer, so you need to. And that's a lot of men don't be communicating. They be like, "Oh, I'm good, everything." You know what I'm saying? And you, meanwhile, you hurting, you crying on the inside.
Well, let the old guy
Brings
respond real
up
quick.
a valid point.
go
All right,
ahead.
let me, if I was asked that question,
Hey,
to
y'all,
say
that's Kenny. That's the voice of God back there.
the voice of God. Okay. For me, I think if the woman's constantly working on herself, we can be okay. You know what I'm saying? Because two people coming into a situation, whether it's whether it's a functional or dysfunctional, there still should be a constant work on self.
Absolutely.
I think that never stops. I don't care how well you think you are, how well you think you're doing, and blah blah blah. Constant work on yourself. The other partner will witness it and either use it as a guide for him or for her, or either one. I think you guys can support each other by working on yourself, but also compliment each other along the way.
I agree with that, but the point that you just made very clear is that you as men have to say, this is what I need, this is what I want from you. Because if you leave it up to us to assume what you need, we're going to give you what we think you need. And that may be all the way wrong. So the question really should have been posed to Stan.
Yeah, but Stan, I was going to go ahead.
Okay, well, what do y'all need?
No, that's true. So as a man, most of the time, men aren't affirmed by their father, right? So the confidence doesn't come from daddy. They don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to show their emotion, right? And also, if they don't have a safe space to articulate that, then they never will. So, for instance, the first time that they begin to open up to you, you can't say, "Oh, he's weak" or "he's sensitive,"
Absolutely.
and the first time that he's vulnerable and he takes a chance on letting you know something, you can't hit him with one of these, right? Because then it scars him from actually moving forward to sharing anything else with you in the future. And therefore, he shrinks up and curls up into this bottle, and he just keeps everything on the inside, and he can use different ways to express it. He can drink, he can smoke, he can go to the strip club, he can hang with his homeboys, and you're wondering why he doesn't spend any time with you, or he doesn't want to be at home. And it's simply because he shared his most prized possession, or his deep down hurt, and it was treated like,
Right.
you
And I
know,
want you to keep that same energy, okay?
Keep
and
that
reverse
same.
that, right? Because the woman then too brings to you her most vulnerable secrets and all of this, and then you use that as a weapon against her.
what do you mean by that? Please.
Okay.
What you say is it happens on
It
both
happens on
sides.
both sides.
Women, I will say though, women we tend to over communicate, so we'll keep.
Women have, you guys have a mouth.
Right. So you,
hold on,
whereas you might shut down.
Hold on, guys.
Oh, sorry.
In the illustrious words of Joe, women talk about how y'all feel, and men talk about what happened. All I can tell you is what happened.
Right.
But all you want to talk about is how you feel.
Feelings and
Right.
emotions.
And
And
that's
we
your
agree on that.
communication
Well, it is
break
what it
right
is.
there.
Well, women are emotional. Men do have a black and white thinking, right?
Right.
And so we both have to own that and we have to merge that, right? And so when I express my feelings to you as a woman, I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to affirm
Exactly.
it and validate
yeah.
it.
And I think I think that is was definitely something I didn't get, and I know it's definitely something that a lot of you guys aren't getting right now in the relationships that you're in, is that women don't want you to fix it. They want you to understand. They want you to understand it. Like I'm guilty as charged for doing that numerous times in my life. You know what I'm saying? They want you to fix it.
No, they don't.
They want you to understand it.
Yeah.
They don't want you to fix it. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes it's best that if you're just a shoulder and you're just a hug and a comfort pillow for a woman. I mean,
Exactly.
sometimes
I'ma
it's
give
better
you-
than even open up your mouth.
I'm gonna give you a couple more things that women should work on for their men to
I'm
make
listening.
things better
I love this.
at home. You know what I'm saying? Okay, if your man tells you something, like don't tell him what your answer is. If you ask a question, accept the answer you are given and not try to make it what you want it to be. You know what I'm saying? Where was you at last night? Oh, I was out with my man Jeff and shit. What was you and Jeff doing? Oh, we was down at the club. No, you wasn't. You was here. It's like, hold up. Slim, why did you ask me the question? Okay, so that's one thing.
Okay, so to that sounds like one of those situations when women ask you a question, but they already know the answer. And what she really is asking
But
you,
y'all don't be knowing half the time. Y'all be thinking
You
y'all
may
know.
think you know the answer.
Right.
she's
It sounds like a
asking
trust
you-
issue.
That's what that is.
Sounds like
You've
trust
been
issue.
lying in the past,
Right.
in a
She's
situation
asking
like
you to be
that.
truthful.
But
That's
you
what
already
she's-
going, you already breaking it down.
Just saying, that's what she's asking. She's not asking for the answer. She's asking for you to be truthful.
Nah,
Right.
I think trust and openness in a relationship are key, especially for men, man. When men are going through a process where you're not actively seeking a relationship. You're not actively looking to court that woman the way she may want to be courted. You got to be open with it. You got to tell them
I have a
exactly
question.
what it is.
In
Go ahead.
reverse to that. Well, what happens when you tell the woman the truth? You tell exactly what you want.
They get mad
And
at
she
you.
goes against that and does what she wants.
They get mad at you and
I
block you.
mean, meaning, you know, in the beginning, when you guys said, when you tell a woman what you want, all I'm looking for is some ass.
Right.
And you
You
straight
gotta
up.
That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
If you say that, you ain't getting nothing.
But that
You say that, you ain't getting
you
nothing.
yeah, you can shut it down because that does happen.
I don't know
I've
any
had
man like that. I don't know any man. My boy, I don't know any man that act like that. I'm sorry.
they act like what?
That just want some. They just give it to you straight up. This is what I want. All I want.
I
is
mean,
some-
there are some, there are some. I mean,
yeah.
there are some.
They may say it a little bit more tactful, but
Yeah.
it's understood.
But that does happen where a guy can be up for. I've had friends where they've come and been like, well, you know, I want more, and I'm like, sis, like he told you.
All I
up
want is
front
this.
that
I don't
was
want a
what
serious
he
relationship.
or that he
Right.
didn't
You
want a
have a
serious
choice.
relationship. So now it's up to you to
have a
be
choice.
like, this
Who are
is
these men?
going to turn.
Just gotta walk
What do you
away.
mean?
I don't-
But
I don't
it
know
might not
them
be.
men.
But it might not be.
I just know upstanding.
No, but it's not always a matter of not being an upstanding man. It could just be a man who's going through a transition period. He just doesn't want to date.
Well, sometimes women
seriously.
can fall into
And
the
I-
friend zone too.
Yeah, 'cause
and I was gonna say you
Look,
want
we
to
just-
stumble across some brothers in solid.
we
They
just
gonna
trying
come
to be-
through because they ain't that solid.
look, we
up
just
front.
trying to
No.
be real. Like the one thing we
Some of the other
going
ones.
the one thing we're gonna continue to do is just keep it real. Like this is a real topic. It's real issues that's going on. There's real people that go through this every day. You know what I'm saying? Like you see these women, man, they got a new boyfriend every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
mean,
I'm saying?
because look at reality TV, and it's cool to hop from man to man or from woman to woman now. It's
Well, I mean,
glorified.
look at rap.
They
Look
just
at rap
trying-
music. Rap music
just
has
trying
been
to find the right
glorifying smashing your chick for
Right.
life.
Right.
Like that's one of our favorite things to say on every joint. Your wife is my baby mama. I smashed your girl. I got your chick.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a badge of honor in
And,
the
and,
hood.
it's also
And
no shame in it.
Right,
The
that's what I'm
side chick
saying.
is glorified. I'm the
That's what I'm
side chick,
saying.
you know, and even the dude, like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Dexter or whoever you want to say.
Right,
the
sport
side dude.
coat.
Yeah, I'm a sport coat, and it's glorified. Like, oh man, you got in there. It's just culture.
Right, but until we start talking about it and really pointing it out, like and saying that is the problem. This is the issue. This is what we need to stop doing. Then it's never going to stop. And that's what this is about, you know?
Think about, we learn more from music is a universal language.
Right.
And we learn a lot. The culture can teach kids, teenagers, adolescents about sex better than their parents can.
Right.
And when you're consistently listening to this music and it's going into your brain and your mind, you're going to do exactly what the rappers are telling you to do.
Exactly.
And until somebody says, no, you're not listening to that music, or even someone with a person of prominence, you know, says that music is wrong, and then we actually start getting behind that instead of just saying, oh no, it's hot because sex sells, let me spin that, DJs, let me spin that record, let me get that record hot, then we're going to have the same consistent perpetuating ideas happening.
Exactly. And I
What
just
about
want
ownership?
go ahead.
What
Go
about
ahead.
self-ownership? Right?
Exactly. I
Because
was just
music
about to
is
say
just
that.
entertainment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? And so I can listen to music and just know that
Let me
that's
get after
entertainment.
her.
So there
Let me
has to
answer
be
that.
a set of morals and values that's
Okay.
instilled in the person, and they have to be willing to say, hey, this is entertainment, this is real life. So it comes down to ownership and responsibility of the person. We can't continue to blame culture and
We were
rap
going the same
and all
place.
those things.
Me and
Yeah.
you were going the same place.
Right. So
It is a power, and this is something that I learned later.
Yeah.
But it's a power in mastering that month now, man. You know what I'm saying? It's a power in mastering yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's a power in mastering your loins. You know what I'm saying? It's a power in walking around daily and knowing that, you know, you're in control of yourself. You know, a lot of men, we don't learn how to love ourselves because you have some men who they don't get the cookie until 1920 and they may just go off. You know, you got some that get it early in life and they may get tired of it quick and then move on to doing something else. And then there's some people out here like I was guilty of, you know, it's just like the goal.
Yep.
It's the goal. It's the
Morals
goal.
matters.
Anytime you go out, anywhere you go, it's the goal. And it's a power in taking that away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I urge you guys, try celibacy for, you know, whatever you can, a month. You know what I'm saying? I got to about 3. I was happy with that. You know, if you can do it for a month, it's a power in it. You kind of learn that, like, okay, it's not that serious anyway.
But I think that we've lowered the standard and we've lowered the bar so low that anything goes. It's so low that no one says you're not supposed to have sex. You're not married. And if you say that, you're literally looked at upon like, oh, he all hoes.
Is that what you teaching your kids? You gonna teach your kids that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's cool.
But because what we do is we lower the standard, and then when things go chaos, like chaotic, then we say, how did we get here? And it's simply because the standard was lower. Like where we are right now with LGBT, and it's because we all lowered the standard so far.
Oh my God.
That it just went chaotic. I'm
see-
touching on a touchy subject.
Did you just see the girl won the NCAA
that's a
track championship?
transgender?
Man, get the.
But if the standard was never lowered, that would never happen.
She was 200 in the men in 2016. She was 320 in the men in 2017. In 2018, transgendered their CC and won the national championship for the women.
But how do
2019.
But how do you
Awesome.
like, stop that? You know what I mean? Like how do you, whenever you allow that to happen,
You can't stop it now.
it's gonna magnify by 10. If you lower the standard here, it's gonna go out of control. Magnify by 100.
So, for young men coming into their own, you know, you go through a relationship, you get a breakup, you know what I'm saying? You need that time to find yourself. You need that time to reevaluate your purpose and find your purpose. And I almost feel like, you know, sometimes females can be almost like a stopgap, a break. You know, they can slow you down in your purpose to getting where you're going, you know. You know, just what do you think about that?
I think that is true.
Disagree.
Let me tell you why. Because you haven't learned how to coexist with a woman where a woman can literally take you and help you propel yourself along to where you're going. So a lot of times us as men, we're not receptive to that, and it actually slows us down versus bringing us forward. It takes time to know how to coexist with someone. And
Absolutely,
how
I
to,
agree with that.
and yeah, it takes that time. Now, in the interim, since you're not used to it, it's gonna slow you down because now you have to spend your time that's divided.
Right.
You gotta spend quality time.
Yes.
You gotta spend time with kids if there's kids in the situation. Like you have to spend this time where you would have been devoted to your craft and pushing forward.
Well, that's a personal responsibility.
Right.
So we can't say that the woman slowed them down.
Well, it's not
a
that.
personal choice that you took on
Yeah,
something
right.
that you couldn't handle. And
Well,
you
it's
have
not
to
just
be
one
able to
gender. I'm
say-
just saying it's
It's
woman
equal
or
both
man.
sides.
Yeah, either way,
Yeah,
both
both
sides.
sides. But personally, you have to be able to say, hey, I'm in a space where I'm working on me, and this relationship situation, I'm just not ready for. So it's a personal choice. Each person has to be responsible for
Or
it.
being aligned with the right person. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Right, that's what I'm saying. How about if you are ready for the relationship, so to speak, but still your time is, you know what I'm saying, it slows. You know?
being aligned though, if that person has other things going on too now, like you and your wife, y'all go to the library together. You working on what she working, you working on, she working on what she working on. So it's an opportunity for y'all to come together because you're aligned. Like, and then even if they're not doing the same thing, they'll be more understanding to what you got going on because
Right.
they have goals.
So it's all
and
about
visions.
finding the right
It's
person.
about
But it
that's
takes
the right
time
person.
to get there.
Yeah.
Because he said like a young man.
Yeah.
It takes time to get to a maturity level where you can say, I'm
Your
working
frontal lobe
towards this
hasn't
path.
developed till you're 28.
Say that again?
Is that why
Your
is
frontal
that
lobe,
why it be like
the
that?
brain still developing.
Until you're 28.
All right, let me get the
That's
two.
when we start losing testosterone too.
I'm gonna get the 2 and 3 for
Poor
y'all.
baby.
So number 2 and 3 out of Nakada's book. The book is called Heart on Break. For any of y'all, I urge y'all to go and order a copy. It's $19.99 on thewisdomhut.com. I don't know this guy. I just kind of was reading it and I kind of like what it says. So you don't know your purpose. Your purpose in life is your true compass to navigate in the world. But most men have spent more time pursuing relationships. This work is designed to help you connect the dots on why men should be engaged in relationships. If they don't know their purpose in real life, relationships are now habitual for most men. So it's important to learn strategies that help you eliminate distractions that come from women in relationships. Plain and simple. If you don't know your purpose, then you don't need to be in a relationship until you found it and begin to follow it. This should be law.
I agree
And I
with
think
that.
that's what we were just talking about. So that was number 1 that we just spent 20 minutes on the break. But anyway, so number 2 would be, these are signs that you may need to read this book. You're always looking for love, okay? The moment a woman realizes you'll put her first in life, she begins to lose respect for you. And this is something that I've heard in a lot of alpha male strategist books. This is something I've heard in a lot of male self-help books. They always tell you as a strong man that you should be mysterious and you should never put her first. You should always put other things first. This is the kind of help that we get, okay? So y'all listen. Don't be sitting there making your faces like that. Y'all listen, okay? The moment a woman realizes you will put her first in life, she begins to lose respect for you, and it is downhill from there. Women can smell neediness in a man. It's like an algorithm embedded in them. A man who is focused on his work, his purpose, and his goals in life also has a strong desire for love, but he doesn't allow his need for it to drive him to a dysfunctional relationship like men who are needy for love and often find themselves in. It's just how it is. Heart on Break is a tool that you can use to unhook yourself from the woman-pleasing train that you got on for the needy approval of women instead of finding yourself. All right, hey, good. This is why I got you here. Come on, give me some. So you don't see any truth to that at all.
That he said you're not supposed to do what to women?
He said put him first.
Put him
Put him
first.
first.
Okay.
I was good after that piece. It was. I mean, you still gotta. I respect the man that is on his hustle and cares
Right.
about himself. I don't want you. I don't want to come along and you be like, you know.
Okay.
But if you can still factor me in and still be doing what you're doing. Like I respect.
I want you to know that this
value.
is in a lot
Okay, so
of self-help books for men.
putting your woman first, right?
Yeah.
First of all, you got to put that in perspective. So the only person you're supposed to put first is your wife. After God,
Okay.
is your wife.
Say that
And so
word
it's
again.
Your wife.
Say it one more time.
After God.
One more time.
Your wife.
Okay. Because you
So-
said woman and wife, so I'm
Not
But I mean,
girlfriend.
the only
Yeah.
woman
Not
that
girlfriend.
you're supposed to put first in your life is your wife. And so if you're
I
putting
agree.
another woman first, then I absolutely agree with him. You're not gonna be on top of your stuff because you are misaligning what you're supposed to be doing, right?
Okay.
Until you have that union, that covenant with God and your wife, that's when you're obligated to put that person first. So yeah.
That was
So
the
put
only
me
thing.
first,
That was the
not
only
your
thing I was
wife.
waiting
You're not gonna
for,
be
the
first for me.
timeline. Because yeah, a man is on his hustle should stay on his hustle
Should stay on his
until
grind.
he can find a wife that's not his wife yet, but
Right.
they're working towards things. But like you know, I understand you went on 100% on that one. Yeah, I think you got there's a separation between the wife and the girlfriend.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go with number 3 of the book. And this is the last one. It's called Same Result. Okay. If almost every relationship you've been in recent years has ended messy, at some point you're going to have to look at yourself in order to find a solution. Whether you cheated or she cheated
Right,
or you
right.
lied or she lied, unrealistic expectations or lack of communication, it's time to hold yourself accountable instead of blaming the woman. Even if you are done wrong by women, you are still the common denominator. When men aren't focused on their purpose in life, they are wrongly over-invested in women, and these are the relationships that end up dragging you through the mud with your mouthpiece Don't be a broken record repeated the same time over and over again. I need to walk out on that. That just hit the nail on the goddamn head.
Make sure you get my car.
Well, hey, look, but this is real talk though. This is real talk. Like he says in the book, you should never blame a woman, no matter what.
Okay. So
You believe that?
I think you shouldn't blame the other
So
person.
if a woman cheats on you as a man,
Don't miscue my point. Hear me out.
okay,
Then you
come
take it
on,
apart.
come on, let's go.
After any relationship, whomever has done wrong, you're the person in the relationship. You need to reevaluate what went well, what didn't go well, what I could improve on, and what I've learned from it. So you can know going into the next relationship what you want and what you don't want, what you're willing to accept, what you're not willing to accept, and what your strengths and weaknesses are. So you should always be working on you, right?
Okay.
The other person may have cheated, they may have done you wrong, whatever the situation is, but you are supposed to grow from the relationship, period.
Okay. What you think about that, Stan? What you think about the 3 points, man?
I think that you know what you know when it comes to dating because of prior relationships.
Perspective.
Yeah, so whatever you do is you have to either learn from it, look in the mirror, or just be naive to the mistakes that you've made or the things that are wrong with you when it comes to dating. So I think that regardless of who, like you said, regardless of who did wrong, what you guys did right, a lot of times we take good things and bad things onto the next relationship.
Right.
And then
Right.
we have false expectations for the next person that we're with unless we heal, unless we tackle those things that went wrong. And then we exemplify the things that went right and put forth that same effort with the next person.
That's
What
exactly
you
what
said with the expectations, right? Reevaluating your expectations and having realistic expectations for that relationship.
Right.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Hey, I'm with it. I would say I think that all men need to take a look at yourself, realize that you're a king, love yourself, tell yourself you love yourself. Don't look for the love from a woman. Don't look for the love from other people. Look within yourself and find it. And when you do that, like, things just fall into place. You know, but there's a lot of men out there that are walking around that are hurt inside. You don't feel good about your financials. You don't feel good about your clothing. You don't feel good about your life. You know, a lot of people will tell you, go to church, you know, and you need to get your life right. Man, you just need to go to church with inside yourself and find out what it is you want to do. And whatever it is you trying to do in life as a man, do it. Do it. I woke up one morning, I said, I'm moving to Texas. And in 3 weeks, I had a hitch on my truck, I had an apartment ordered, I had my retirement cashed in, and I piled up in the back of a car and drove to Texas with no problem. A lot of people told me, what the hell is wrong with you? You can't do that. You can't. What do you mean I can't do that? I can do whatever I want. I got a CDL license. I can get a job in Texas just like I get a job here in DC. And I left. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. Be a man. Follow your heart. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And just focus in. You know, I'm the dead air serious. My bad.
Right.
What?
I was just gonna say that was a great point. It just reminds me of.
You want to counsel me, don't you?
Please help a brother out.
It reminds me of my life motto, which is live life while you are living intentionally.
Right.
And what that simply means is to seek joy in every aspect of your life, whether that's at work, in your relationships, in whatever roles that you hold in life. Seek joy. And if you look at that situation and you don't see any joy and happiness in it, then you need to reevaluate it and restructure it so that you can have joy in it, right? So it comes from you.
Aqueelah, okay. Everything you just said.
Go ahead, Kenny.
But Aqueelah, you know, I hear a lot of people say that, seek joy. And I believe that. I'm not against you at all. But some people don't know what that means. You know, to seek joy within yourself.
Right,
You know,
call me.
Call you. Okay.
Therapeutic
Okay, I got your card right here. No, I'm just
Therapeutic
kidding.
transitions not working.
Put that on the post.
If you don't know how to find your joy,
Right, what makes you happy.
probably do need to go to therapy because you need to figure out where you lost it. Let's reestablish it, right?
Glad I'm
So
out.
there's a lot of hurt there, right? Whether that's from childhood trauma, sometimes from being in the church and community, having hurt relationships or whatever that is. You got to go back, dissect through that, process that hurt, so you can find your joy and reestablish a new normalcy with your joy.
And one of the things is denial. Because some people
That's a
don't
huge
want
factor.
to admit that they have that issue. You know, I mean, I'm 54 years old, believe me, I went through that back in my 30s. At this point now, I know exactly who I am. I know what my limitations are, I know what my strengths are. So I'm not wavering in that at all. I am completely clear on that. And when I try to tell other people, you know what I'm saying, like, look, you just, you know, you got to find your own space. You got to find your motivation, those things that make you feel good. You know, wherever it is, those little victories count.
Right.
And you got to recognize what they are when you see those little victories. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
Oh,
No,
no,
but also, me and sometimes we're not. What's the word for this? So sometimes as men, we're looking for joy, but we don't know what we like to do any longer because we were taught as men that we must be Superman and we must take care of the woman.
Right.
And sometimes we lose our peace, joy, happiness, whatever it may be, because we've actually placed those things inside of other people, which we should always still have our own lives. You know what I mean? So sometimes whenever you're married, you have the most important thing to a married man is his wife and his kids and his work. And you lose your social components. You know, you communicating with other men, you connecting with other men because the woman looks at it and says, you hang with your boys too much. But it's healthy to hang with your boys,
Yeah,
just
it
not
is.
too much. It's healthy to hang with, you know, to get outside of that, to do what makes you happy. But if you're taught to be Superman and hold down the fort and be the head of the household, when you do something that's not within those same guidelines, the woman has to be okay with that because you need that. It's important.
What you're speaking on is self-care.
Right.
Right. So every person, man or woman, needs to employ self-care into their lives.
Know
And if
yourself.
that means fellowshipping with the guys, then you do that. But you do have to make space and time for self-care or you're going to burn out, man or woman. So
Right.
For any of you guys out there that want to have a real meaningful relationship, make sure you love like this. Love just like that. Let that bird fly away and do whatever it needs to do and come back and land however it needs to land. Because if you love them like this, you're going to kill them. That's it for the Mancave, y'all. We out of here. Thank you, Aqueelah. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Britt. Cue the music, man. Let's get out of here today. Appreciate y'all for coming out, man.